Hey Sainers, welcome back to the Saints TV YouTube channel. It's the Round 10 preview. We take on the Adelaide Crows, 7:30pm, Saturday night football at Adelaide Oval. It's going to be a big one. I'll be flying over on Saturday morning with my mate Jaden, who's been on the channel years ago, so it'll be great to go and watch the game with him and spend the day in Adelaide. We go into this game off the back of a big win against Geelong, good 10-point win there. And basically I've been smiling all week and watching the replay over and over and over and driving my girlfriend insane by doing so, but it's just such a good win, and you know how much I hate Geelong. So Adelaide Crows, they're 14th on the ladder. They started the season reasonably well. They had a few decent wins. They beat Richmond at Adelaide Oval only 4 or 5 weeks ago by 20 odd points. Then they backed it up, I think, in Ballarat and beat the Dogs there by a point. But ever since then, they've lost games. They've conceded over 100 points in their last 3 games. So the GWS Giants beat them by 10 goals. Carlton beat them by 10 goals. And then they lost to Brisbane last week in a fairly gallant effort by 6 goals. They did hit the front in that game, midway through the third term, I think. But then Adelaide dropped off and Brisbane went to another gear and they won by 6 goals. So they're coming into this off the back of 3 straight losses. We're coming in off the back of a really good, solid win against a top 8 contender in Geelong and a bogey team that we haven't beaten in 6 years. So it's Adelaide in Adelaide. It's not going to be an easy game. They're always better at Adelaide Oval. And for us, I think the main thing is to just continue to play our way. And that's what I mentioned in the podcast. I think that in other games, there's a lot of key matchups, one-on-ones that need to go right. And last week was one of those games where, we need to negate Tom Stewart. We need to handle Hawkins and handle Cameron. In this game, I think it's a bit more clear-cut in that if we play our best, I think that's good enough. And that's not any disrespect to Adelaide Crows. It's just we're in different parts of our development. We're looking for a top 4 spot and they're looking to, finish the year well and maybe sneak into the 8, but most likely be from 9 to 13, 14, where they're at the moment. So this is a big game in the context of our season because that'll take us to 7-3, and then we play North Melbourne, and then we have the bye. So after a couple of iffy weeks against Port and Melbourne, to finish and lead into the bye with 3 straight wins would be amazing, but it obviously starts on Saturday night, and Adelaide are going to want to respond. And in particular, in front of their home crowd, that's a big factor anytime we travel away from home. So that's something that we need to handle really well. That's off the back of starting the game well. That's something we haven't done in about 4 or 5 weeks. We haven't started a game well, probably since the Hawthorn game, I think. Even Gold Coast, we didn't start well. Port Adelaide, we did. And then Melbourne, obviously, we didn't. And Geelong, we didn't as well. So this is a game where the first quarter is more important than recent first quarters because we want to take Adelaide and the support and that crowd impact out of the game. So that means coming out fast, leading at quarter time, leading at half time, and really going from there in the second half because we know how good our second halves are, in particular our third terms, which is the second best in the competition behind the benchmark Melbourne. So the key players in this game, the number 1 player, I think, is Ben Keays, just because he's the main driver for Adelaide. He's number 1 for disposals. He's number 1 for score involvements. He's number 1 for contested possessions, and he's number 1 in terms of fantasy points. And we're missing Jack Steele. So there's a big impact there in the middle of the ground because they've got a very informed midfielder. He's not the most damaging by foot, but he just gets a lot of it. He drives them. He creates that impact. And that's a good starting point for Adelaide. So if we take that away from them, there's not many other players, I think, in that midfield that will cause us a lot of headaches. Ben Keays is one. They're not going to have Riley O'Brien. He's likely to miss again. Rochelle supposedly going to be rested. I know that they've got, I think, Jordan Butts, the defender, who's in COVID protocol. He comes out of protocol on Saturday morning, game day. So it'll be a risk for them to play him. I don't know if they will. I guess if they do, he's probably underdone and not trained for a week and just straight out of COVID, very risky. And if they don't, even better because that's a key defender out for them. And then going forward, obviously, they've got McAdams, who's actually very lively, small forward and very dangerous. So without Rochelle, he'll pick up the slack in the forward line for them. And then obviously they've got Tex Walker, who just always kicks goals against us, always lifts for games against St Kilda, and he always kicks bags. So we need to have Dougal Howard and Kel Wilkie switched on, and they just handled Tom Hawkins and Cameron pretty well last week. 5 goals between the two of them, which is actually not bad considering the form they've both been in. This week we need to keep Tex Walker to probably 3 or less goals, and that really will have an impact on the game because Tex will lift them. He'll be up and about. We want to just take him out of the game and make sure that he has no impact on the game at all. So for us, without Riley O'Brien on Adelaide's end, we're going into this with Paddy Ryder and Rowan Marshall, and we all saw what Paddy Ryder did to Stanley last week and what Marshall can do forward of the ball. So that's a big, big bonus for us. And that kind of makes up for the lack of steal because we're just going to get first use every time with our rucks. And that means that Gresh, Jones, Sinks, Crouch, Ross, they're all going to get a run through there. Winhager, I can't wait to see him get a full game, no doubt. And we'll talk about the potential ins and outs, but no doubt he gets elevated. He should have a starting position on the ground. And then that kind of leaves it open to who comes in from the Sandy level because Sandy didn't play last week. They had the bye. And we've also got Jack Higgins who's going to miss because of the concussion protocol. So Dan Butler might look like the likely inclusion there. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But overall, backline, no changes. I think we stick with the backline that we had last week. Ben Long forward was excellent. But it just depends on how we go with Adelaide's forward line. I think McAdams is probably the main small threat there. If they had Rochelle there, you might play Ben Long back, but you've got Paddo and Webster there. They'll take that. I think Riley Thilthorpe will be coming in as well for Adelaide. So we all remember the over-the-head match winner last year in Cairns. Don't like thinking about that one. But that was off the back of his boots and his creativity, so he's going to be a weapon for them, and he'll take some pressure off Tex Walker, so we'll need Wilkie and Dukes to handle those two. And then in our forward line, I think this is where we can get them. We've got a very good forward line, especially last week, the way we operated. I thought it was very clever. It was probably the most tactically adept forward structure that I've seen us play, and no doubt there was a lot to do with Sharman coming in and distracting Tom Stewart and leading up to the ball and moving, and that kind of forced Max King to move a little bit as well. Membry played a bit deeper, and then we're able to afford the luxury of resting someone like Paddy Ryder deep at times and Rowan Marshall, and they both took good marks. They both hit the scoreboard, and that's exactly what we want from our ruckman in this game as well. So Dan Butler should come in. I think that someone like a Mitch Owens has been talked up by Rats, has been talked up by the media all week with his form with Sandy. So I think there's a very big chance that he comes in and plays that role, rotating maybe high half forward and in the middle, which would be really exciting to see how he goes with Windy, his best mate. And Nasai is another one that could come in, but I just think the type of game it is, the players that we're missing, I don't see, with Billings on another wing and Hill on another wing, Sinks rotating between half-back and maybe centre as well, no doubt. I don't think there would be a position for him, but I wouldn't be against Nasai getting a run. But, he might get a run at Sandy this week, get a bit of legs into him, and then bring him back for the North game potentially if need be. So we've got depth. There's Highmore in the back line, Jared Leanett. There's a lot of options there, but I think the main one will be Mitch Owens, Bytel as well, and then Windy to be elevated off from being the medical sub from last week after he came on and did an amazing job, 15 disposals in 50% game time. So that's huge for Windy, especially against a team like Geelong. So we've got the tools in this game. I think overall stats are in our favour. We average more disposals. We average more inside 50s. They average more clearances. We've got way more marks, more possession, more tackles, more goals, better defence. So I think overall, if we go there and we play Saints footy, I dare say that Saints footy probably gets the chocolates in this game. Adelaide is always difficult for us. We've only won, I think, 2 of our last 25 games in Adelaide, from what I read somewhere. I think that's a stat. If you know it or it's different, please correct me in the comments. But our record there is just generally really shit. And those 2 wins were in 2020, 5 days apart. It was 1 year where we bucked the trend there. But this year, it's really important for us. We cannot be dropping games like this if we want to make top 8, let alone, obviously we want to make top 4 if we can. It's wide open. It's Melbourne, Brisbane, and whoever else wants to come to the party. So I think we can come to that party. We just have to get wins like this on the board. And I'll take a 1-point win at this point, but obviously percentage, we're 116, I think. This is a game where I think we can put our foot to the floor. They've conceded over 100 points in their last 3 games, Adelaide. So although they can be dangerous on their day, defensively they are always prone to leaking goals, and our attack is as good as any when it's switched on, and we saw that against Geelong. In a 10-minute burst, we kicked 6 goals, 3 to 1 point. We've had a lot of bursts this year. Richmond, there was a burst. Geelong, there was a burst. Collingwood, even, there was a burst. Gold Coast, there was a burst. GWS, there was a burst. We just turn it on for 10 minutes and it seems to really get the job done. So I can see this game being really competitive. I think that Adelaide will definitely lift after their 3 down weeks, especially at home Saturday night in front of their home fans. They're going to lift, but I think it's going to be the sort of game where it'll be close, but I think we'll have that classic 3rd, 4th term where we just lift. We probably are fitter than them and we'll run it away with it. And hopefully, ideally, I tipped us by about, 30 points. I'll take a 5-goal win because Adelaide are a tough team and they've got some good weapons, but even without Jack Steele, even without Higgins, we've got enough firepower to kick a winning score. So I'll leave it there, Sainers. Thank you very much for watching the preview. Please comment your thoughts as well. Are you going to the game? I'll be sitting near the Saints end. I think it's near the hill, seating on the left-hand side there. So if you see me, say g'day. And obviously subscribe if you're a Sainer and you enjoy all the content, or you're not and you just enjoy the content anyway. Hit subscribe, and I'll be back live after the game, hopefully to talk about a win, Sainers. So I'll see you then. I'll be there with Jaden. He'll be joining me. It'll be great to go there with a mate and hopefully get a good win. I haven't seen a win at Adelaide Oval in my life since I've travelled over there to watch games, so it'll be really nice to go there and see a win, and hopefully go 7-3 and sneak into the top 5. I don't think we can get top 4 with this win, depending on percentage, but top 5 will be locked up, and then we play North Melbourne before the bye, which is obviously a big game for us. So I'll leave it there. Thanks very much for watching, Sainers. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you after the game on Saturday night. Go Sainers.